Hey, what's going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Unstabled. I'm, of course, Jeff Steckel, your host, aka Big Stack. You can find me now on X, if the ad right there. I also just made an Instagram. It's called Unstabled underscore CPN, which is, of course, for Curtis Podcast Network. This is a sister station of that, uh, and of course, of this AFC South show, which I'm a part of. So, welcome. Thanks for joining. I definitely appreciate it. I'm usually joined by Alex. Unfortunately, he's been ill. I've had some, chaotic events going. I kind of got to a crash, so if you kind of see me, whatever. Really been the same since, but you know, the show must go on. Again, head on over to CPN, give the AFC South show a like and a sub. Do the same here. Of course, for Alex, head over to Chaotically Intolerant. He's always putting out some pretty great content. In this episode, we're going to go over, now that we've had some time, the draft marinate, we're going to go over that. Kind of some brief, some not. I'll give my grades for each pick. And there's also a pretty intriguing position group that I want to talk about heading into the, preseason that I think is the most interesting. So that's what we'll do. And just a little bit of news, and I think it'll be a good segue into the draft. The Colts did pick up Quiddy Pay's fifth year option, which honestly I find a little bit surprising. He was of course, first round pick, and he hasn't really played up to that yet. I think the potential's there, but he's been kind of riddled with injuries. He has gotten better statistically each year. I just don't know if it warranted picking up the fifth year option instead of making him play into a contract. But and that's a good segue as to why I'm a little bit shocked why they picked it up because of their first round pick. So of course the Colts did take Latu. I mean, there's no reason to build up suspense. Of course they win Latu. We all know that at this point. The real is kind of just how you feel about it. A lot of people wanted the Colts to trade up to get Marvin Harrison Jr. It was a pipe dream that it was never going to happen. The I don't think Arizona would have ever traded out of the four spot. I think that was their guy all along. I think they knew three in front of them were probably going to go quarterback. So it would have required moving up to third with a quarterback needy team. The price tag would have been astronomical. There was talks about Ballard moving up, like he was trying to find a trade partner to move up, whether it was to grab Latu higher, or potentially move up for someone like Brock Bowers. The Colts are kind of stacked at tight end, which is a segue to the other thing I wanted to talk about. Uh, but there's a lot of speculation as to who Ballard was trying to move up to get. Ultimately, I think they got their guy at 15. I don't know if they anticipated him being there at that juncture in the draft, but I love the pick. I had time to sit on it, and of course, if you watched, all three of our viewers, if you watched our previous, we were pretty much unanimous. It was going to be a DB at 15. If not, trade back and still grab a corner. So it was a shock, but it makes sense. And here's why. The first reason is, of course, if you know anything about football, you know that a great pass rush can help a secondary. Just like a quarterback can make a wide receiver look much better, a pass rush can do the same. And it's very intriguing. Like, to me, he was the best defender in the draft. And a lot of people have concerns over his injury. He was forced to medically retire, and I'm not concerned with it because it can happen to any player, anytime. I'm not worried about it. I love the pick. I think his motor's always running. I think he's got a great attitude, and all that injury tells me is that he's resilient. He didn't give up, and he came back for 2 years after that injury and balled out. He put together two phenomenal seasons after that, after he was cleared to be the best defender in this draft. So I think it was the right move. I really do. A DB is important. Don't get me wrong. But when the best defender is on the board, when you come up to pick it 15, you take it. So I love the pick. I think it was the right way to go. Again, the injury concern, it's just not there for me. If it wasn't there for them, they would have passed. And without that, concern, this dude's a top 5 pick. And the other argument is, well, he transferred to an easier, school, and he transferred in the same conference. That's not an argument. He only transferred because the defensive coordinator went to UCLA. So I feel like these are just excuses to try and downgrade how good of a pick this was. And man, it's intriguing. I'm not going to put him out there. Oh, he's the next Freeney or Mathis. I don't even think the comparison can be made there. I think they're different style of edges. A lot of people have been comparing Latu to like TJ Watt, and that is a huge compliment. He's, again, motor always running hot. He's always full steam ahead. And the idea of pairing him with, Grover, Buckner, and then we've got a stable of really good edges. Of course, Quiddy Peg. And there with my camera. Sorry, folks. Mine it fell off. Poor production value. I'm so sorry. And I am blurry as shit. Might have actually upped the production from Silver. I love the idea of pairing him up with that line, and then of course the other edges that they've got with, of course, Quiddy Pay, Ibukum. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Dio, Taekwon Lewis, Adi, whatever his name. I can't pronounce half the names. But I like the idea of having those guys rotated out and having Latu on another side, especially with Grover and Buckner. I think the Colts might have one of the best front sevens in football. I'm very excited to see what that group, and this is another reason I almost forgot about it. The Colts were really good at getting sacks, but their pressure rate was terrible, one of the worst in the league. So they didn't consistently put pressure on their quarterback. So I think this will help. It'll help tremendously. Up that pressure rate, and of course, still get sacks, but up the pressure rate, which I think might even be more important than sack totals. So I love the pick, and I'm going to go ahead and give this one an A+, just because he probably shouldn't have been there at 15. And then of course we go into the second round, and this is where I get a little bit conflicted. The opportunity to move up was there. And of course, Cooper DeJean and McKinstry, I believe, were still available, early, not quite mid-second round. I think they went, like 41, 42 or something like that. So the opportunity could have been there for Ballard to move up in the second, which he's historically, he's done it before. I kind of expected him to do it. Instead of being at 46, he decided to drop back to 52. And he netted 2 more 5s. And I'm okay with it, because the guy they got, A.D. Mitchell, he was projected as one of the top wide receivers in the draft, and 51 other picks passed on him. A lot of people say, oh, he has character concerns. Of course, we all know that Ballard went off on those concerns. He on a expletive rant about his character in defense of him, and I love that. It's bullshit, is what he was calling it. And I don't know A.D. Mitchell personally, but if anything about Ballard is he drafts character guys. So if he thinks they're going to be a locker room nuisance or a bother, he's not going to take it. The talent could be there. He's not going to take it. So he really defended A.D. Mitchell here, which kind of gives me a vote of confidence in the guy. He's a big dude. He's 6'2", 6'3", like 200 pounds. He's a big wide receiver. So I really wanted someone to come in and, if not take Alec Pierce's spot, at least push him hard. I think AP has flashed, but there's also been some a little bit of room, I desire a little bit more out of him. He's fast, but he's had issues, at least in my opinion, getting separation on those underneath routes. And I think that's an area. Of course, Josh Downs is phenomenal on those. Pittman, he can make those contested catches. But what I love about the group of Pittman, AD, and Downs, their drop rate is 1% or something stupid low. I think in 2 years, yeah, I don't even know how many targets AD Mitchell had, and he had one drop. So when you've got virtually still a rookie quarterback at the helm, that helps. So this wide receiver core really has me excited. And the acquisition in the draft of AD Mitchell, this could be a really fun offense. Um, we go into the third round. I'll go over the third and fourth round. They of course took tackle, I believe it was center, and a guard. Yeah, sorry, I haven't looked at my notes. I'm tired. But they took two linemen, and I'm sorry, I'm going to give AD Mitchell, my ADHD brain's going haywire. I'm going to give that an A+ too, just for falling back, grabbing him at 52. He was projected probably in the first. So that was in my opinion, the steal of the second round. So we go on to the third and fourth. We grabbed a couple of linemen. I think one predominantly played center, one played tackle. And I do think there might have been of course, defensive back, probably a higher position of need. But I think when you get to these rounds, it's more of athletic score of who is the best person on the board at that point. And I think, at least in Ballard's eyes, that these two linemen at their respective, picks were them. And I have no issue with beefing up the line. Kelly, he's getting older. He's had some injury past, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. Same thing with Braden Smith. So you got a young quarterback, and you want to make sure he's protected. Fine with it. I'm not going to give it an A just because, again, I think maybe a corner here might have been a little bit more pressing, but I'll still give it like a good solid B+, just because you win games in the trenches. The big plays to the big wide receiver, they're flashy, but games are won on the line. So I get it. I like it. It's perfect. We move on into the fifth round, and they took Oregon State wide receiver Anthony Gold. At first, I was a little bit confused, and then his specialty is kick returns. And of course, as we know, the NFL, I'm not going to go into the details about what all was changed, but it's a totally different format on kickoffs. It's bringing back, hopefully, kick returns. One of the most exciting plays in football was kind of watered down and taken away. They're doing what they can to bring that back, and the Colts played to that because this guy was the best kick returner in college. I love the pick. He's out here playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. I love the pick. I think it was an excellent job by him to get this guy, even if he is just a special teamer kick returner. It could be a very big part of the game now. Before they change it to where it's just okay, you're just starting. What's the point of the kickoff at this point? So since they changed that, I like him playing that game. Grabbing the best kick returner in college. I love it. And then they went, if I'm not mistaken, I think they played predominant safety, but I'm talking about the fifth rounders. But he's probably going to be converted over to linebacker, if I'm not mistaken. It was Jalen Carley's. I don't know much about the actual players, to be honest. There's been a lot going on. I haven't had a lot of time to pay attention to college. But they went basically linebacker, DB. So there's your secondary depth right there. And I love Juju Brents. I think he's pretty much solidified as the one. And of course, you got Kenny Moore. I think Jalen Jones played well, but he was, I can't remember, 6th, 7th rounder. So he was, kind of wet behind the ears, but he flashed. And what I liked about him is that even if they got, beat on a play, they never gave up on the play. and they were always going for the tackle. They were always, even if they missed, they were still playing their asses off. And that was something that really, really was it was pissing me off about Baker. Like he would get burnt and just give up on the play. These guys, at least they were running out there to make the tackle. If they're going to get burned, at least get burned at 100%. So I like them. And they're rookies. They're going to get better. Juju missed a good chunk of the season, so it's really hard to evaluate what he could have done. I don't remember who the opponent was. I can't remember the game, but Juju, they let up the play, but he came from behind, punched it out, caused a fumble, recovered it, and it was pretty much the turning point of that game. And to me, that's just a glimmer of what Juju can bring to the table. So I like the trajectory of where the secondary was going. I agree. I would have loved to have brought in veteran help. It would have been nice if they made that splash trade with KC. Unfortunately, it didn't materialize. It would have been nice to, there's still a couple of veterans out there. Xavier Howard, I think Gilmore's still out there. Maybe he'll be willing to come back on a 1-year deal. Just to get a veteran presence in there. But I'm excited to see what Jalen Simpson can bring to the table. I've heard a lot about him in Colts forums. That he might be a really good steal from the 5th round, and I wouldn't put it past Ballard to get talent that late in the draft. He's done it over and over. Just look at Sire Franklin. I think he's one of the top linebackers in the game, and he would have been the leader in sacks had he not missed a game in there. So I think he's one of the best linebackers. I think this defense was really good in spite of Gus Bradley. Like, I think he needs to be a lot more aggressive. And now he has the opportunity to do it. I don't think there's any excuses for him this year. But we can talk about that after. And of course, so I'll give each of those, I'd say A minuses, just because it was a definite position need. They definitely needed depth in their secondary. When Juju wasn't there, man, it was rough. They didn't know who the hell to trot out there, so it was rough. And Juju kind of settled that down a little bit. But there was still, of course, we already talked about it, but there was still need for improvement. I'll just leave it at that. Again, kind of going back to that second, it kind of would have been nice to maybe move up and grab one of those top corners in the draft, and maybe drop, one of fifth and 6th rounder to wiggle back into it and grab AD Mitchell. I don't know if there would have been a way to finagle with it, but that's all speculation. And then, of course, in the 7th round, the Colts win defensive tackle Chono. I'm gonna butcher his last name, Laulu. With names, but I don't know. We have so many defensive tackles. I'm not sure if this was, just grabbing the best player that was there at 234. You can never have too much depth, again, in the trenches, but maybe he'll pan out. Maybe, I feel like he'll probably wind up being probably not on the starting roster for the Colts. I could be wrong, but yeah, I mean, so I'll give that, probably a C. But overall, I think Ballard knocked this draft out of the park. Man, especially, I'm intrigued to see what Latu can bring to the table. And of course, AD Mitchell, he's got that chip on his shoulder. He was, and again, I was talking about the character concerns about him, and Ballard said was bullshit. He's pissed. He was visibly pissed going into it, and they showed his face. Oh, he didn't want to be a Colt. No, that isn't the case. He was projected mid to late, probably 1st round, and he fell to 52. So that's a chunk of dough that was taken off the table, and again, 51 other picks. 31 other teams passed on him, including the Colts once. So he was pissed. and now he's on his revenge tour, and I'm glad he's a Colt. So, and of course, I'm in Texas. He was a Texas from Texas, so uh, I'm happy to have him. I welcome all these guys to the Colts team, and I hope they bring ton of passion and just show up, man. Show up and show out. I'm 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 sorry. I'm excited to see what Latu can do. It's been a long, I think it's been since 2006 since the Colts had a 15 plus pass rusher. So I'm hoping this is the dude to do it. And if he is, that'll help that secondary a lot. So I'm excited for these picks. I think this could very well turn out to be Ballard's best draft. Ballard might be a lot of things, but bad drafter isn't one of them. So I'm really excited to see what this is, how these people turn out. It usually takes 2-3 years to deem anybody really a bust. So, but man, that defensive line, I'm just saying, lot with Latu, and then kind of rotating out those other edge rushers with Buckner and Grove. And, Buckner moves around too, so I think this front seven is going to give offensive coordinators nightmares. I'd be very surprised if they're not in the top five. I really would be. This is kind of the way too early predictions, but I'd be shocked if they weren't in the top five. I wouldn't be surprised if they turn that low pressure rating. I think they're like 27th or 28th in the league in pressure rate. I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the top 10. I really wouldn't. I just want Bradley to call some damn blitzes, man. You've got the personnel to do it. You've got some fast, young, hungry corners. But they make mistakes, in coverage. They'll make mistakes. They'll get turned around on routes, and the way to fix that is to put the quarterback on his ass, make him feel you. So, no homo. But yeah, I mean, make the quarterback feel that pressure, and that's how you help these corners. So I hope Gus Bradley brings, at least dials up a few extra times a game than what he did, which was virtually none. I'd love to see him dial up some blitz packages. He's got the talent. He's got the personnel to do it. Put a little bit of faith in your corners, and definitely put that faith in your front seven. This could be a fun defense to watch. I'm excited by it. So at the beginning of the show, I talked about a position group that I thought was probably the most intriguing going into camp, and that's at the tight end. I want to talk about the tight ends. I think it's pretty obvious, barring injury, who the quarterback's going to be, who the top receivers are. It's aside from who's going to take over that two spot with Alec Pierce AD, or is it going to be like a committee type of deal? But we pretty much know who the receivers are primarily going to be. Same thing at defensive tackle, edge. It's pretty obvious. Tight end, I think, is the interesting position. And I say that because now Jelani Woods has, at least the last we heard, has a clean bill of health. He was, didn't see the field last year, hamstring injuries. He started the season on IR, and he was coming back. I think it was the other hamstring he messed up. So, it was a very, I'm sure, very disappointing 23 for him. And last we heard, he had a clean bill of health. So he'll hopefully be out there, be ready to go. No more injury. The man's a monster. I'm just getting that out of the way. The dude's 6'7", like 260, and ran a 4.6 40. He's an absolute monster and a menace to what would be, secondaries. And I think we saw him with Matt Ryan, and he was absolutely on fire that one game, just running crisp routes. He looked like a veteran. Like, he looked awesome, and just this big running around secondary. No one could keep up with him, and no one could match his size. It was awesome. If he's healthy, right now Mo Alley Cox is pinned in as Granson is pegged as the one. Honest, he's got good hands. I'm not saying Granson's bad. I'm saying that I don't think Mo Alley Cox should have been on this team like a year or two ago. I've been over the experiment. I've seen him out there with his hammer hands. It seems like he's trying to play defensive back with his quarterback. Like just here comes the ball. I, he's had some good catches too. Don't get me wrong. He's a pretty good blocker, but I'm over the experiment. Like he was brought in, from basketball, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm over the Mo Alley Cox experiment. I'm over it. I was over it a year or two ago. He just his ceiling, I think, is so much lower than that of Jelani Woods. Like the same exact size as Ogletree, who, of course, another update. He was also, a little while back was removed from the commissioner exempt list. So he's back. Him and Mo Alley Cox have the same size, but Ogletree was a little bit faster than Mo Alley Cox. So I feel like that drops Mo all the way, down to the 3 tight end spot. I think Granson has better hands than him, and I think Mallory could be a better blocker than him. So if Mo Alley Cox is on this team, it would be tight end 4, and he's probably bumping Mallory. I don't think you should carry 5 tight ends, but that's one. That's out of my pay grade to make those decisions. If I were the coach, you can coach Jeff at Big Sting. If I were the coach, I'm putting Jelani and Ogletree as my 1-2. I wouldn't say an argument with the guy. He was very, we were both really respectful with each other, but he wants to see Jelani Woods and Mo Alley Cox, kind of the 2 towers on, I'm like, he's not any bigger than Ogletree, and Ogletree is better. I'm just not understanding the defense of Mo Alley Cox anymore. I feel like if there was going to be a budget saving roster cut, that would probably be the guy. I've also been really high up on Jelani, but if Jelani Woods is hurt, I mean, yeah, okay, you probably keep Mo Alley Cox around. But if he's a go and he's healthy and he goes into the regular season, I think. But that's, I guess, my way too early prediction. We haven't even hit off-season training camp stuff yet. So, but if I were to peg it down, I would go Jelani Ogletree is my 1-2, and then put Granson in the 3 spot. But that's just because of size and athletic ability. But we're going into a slow period, so if you guys want any topics or anything, feel free to drop it in the comments. All 3 of you that are watching, please interact. Please comment. If you don't agree with me, hey, I'll bring up your comment in the next pod. We'll talk about it. I will say, I forgot to bring up Alex's comments. He is very much kind of a polar opposite of how I felt about this draft. He really wanted Cooper DeJean, and I did too. I think he might have been one of like the best corner in this draft. I did want him. I honestly did. I was really hoping in that second round they were going to move up and grab him, but I'm very excited for Latu. Alex has the same concerns, all the other, everybody else does about, he had to medically retire. And we have to remember that this was like 2022, kind of during the COVID nonsense, getting that medical clearance and whatever. It was a lot tougher, 2-3 years ago to do. So, at that same time, he was playing rugby. I personally think it's a storyline that's been overplayed and overused and overspoken. He played 2 very successful years after finally getting medical clearance to come back. So I'm not concerned with it. He wasn't happy that in the second round they didn't move up to get a corner. I would have liked to have seen it. I don't know how he feels about Mitchell. Like I said, he's been under the weather, so we haven't been talking as much. But I would assume he liked the AD Mitchell pick. We were texting a little bit during the draft. He was kind of neutral on the offensive line. He wasn't happy that they went, I think, in the 5th round the way that they did. Um, but when we get back together next week, hopefully he can kind of clear some of this up. But there's a lot of mixed emotions on draft night, so I don't want to put words in his mouth that he wasn't saying. But I know that he really wanted Cooper DeJean. He's very concerned about Latu's injury concern, I guess, back from 22. But it can happen to anybody. I mean, it's football. Anybody at any point, it can happen to anyone. And I don't think there's been a single player that's retired that didn't have some injuries. Was every Hall of Famer injury prone? Like it's the game. It's just the way that shit goes. And from what I'm seeing from Latu is he had a terrible injury where he could have rolled over, said "F it, I'm not playing anymore." He said, "Nah, I'm gonna play." And that's what he did. He balled out for 2 more years and became the best defender. So I'm glad he's a Colt. He's probably not watching this, but if he is, good to have you, brother. I think that's probably a good point to wrap up. Help us reach the like goal, sub goal, pump up those numbers. Drop a like, drop a sub. Help us out, man. Go over to the AFC South show, do the same. Yeah, find me on X, Instagram again, unstable_CPN, and go over to Chaotically Intolerant. Do the same favor. We appreciate the support, and I'll take one out of Curtis's notebook and said, "Y'all have a good night and be good people." Bye.